New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. And hello again, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And I'm Rev Sydney.
And this is New Thought Today for the 29th of July. There it is. The whole month's gone already, folks. And we're almost into the late summer now of August. But our guest today, very special guest. I'm so happy you're here, actually. Reverend Dr. Lehman Steen from the North Hollywood. I always want to make sure I put you in the right side of town. The North Hollywood Church of Religious Science, a oneness center for spiritual living. Yep. And we've known each other for a few years now, but I'm so grateful you're finally getting on the show. Fill everybody in. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself. What do we need to know to get into the conversation here?
Let's see. What do you need to know? I grew up in religious science and New Thought. And we started, probably I was about 8 years old. So I have been on, within this conversation, within this language, within this awareness for most of my life. I spent 40 years, more than that, maybe 50 years as a professional musician here in LA and some other places. I was known as kind of a kick-ass jazz and keyboard player. When I was about 18, I got to play with Dizzy Gillespie, which was very, very cool. So I've done a few things like that. And now this is the call. I mean, I became a practitioner in 2000 here at the North Hollywood Church. My husband and I moved with our son in 2004 to Oregon. And then when Dr. Mark Vieira called me at one point in summer of 21 and said, would you ever consider moving back? I need a new assistant minister. I said, yeah, definitely. So we moved back, and it was the onboard to becoming senior. And we have a very vibrant community. And like so many other communities, very, very much in a space of initiating change, initiating transformation, initiating growth, because if we don't, we know we're not going to be here. So we are doing everything we can to invite an awareness within the current community and perhaps the incipient community that we are unapologetically inclusive, and that wherever anybody is on their spiritual path and wherever they are on that spectrum of gender, of age, of color, of politics, of religion, of whatever that is, that we welcome them, because variety creates a tapestry of so much beauty and so much possibility and strength. So that's where we go with it. We teach truth. We teach truth. And I know that, Ernest Holmes said, we are open at the top. I have a dedication to being open at the sides as well.
I like that. Open at the sides as well. Folks, if you're watching live with us, feel free to ask your questions. Drop a comment in the comment box. And we'll get you caught up on all of this. So, Reverend Sydney, along the way, and I want to make sure we get this, we chat about this early in the conversation, and don't forget, it also turns out, now you and I met a few years back at an affiliated New Thought Network conference. Mm-hmm. And at that time, there's this guy coming out of the Agape movement, Rev Skip, who I got to know, and he was on the network for a little while, and then slipped off the network for a little while. And then all of a sudden he shows back up and he's stepped into the assistant position there with you in North Hollywood. Tell us all a little bit. How did that happen? How did that introduction get facilitated? How did you know this was like the person to call in and say, hey, come be a part of what's going on here?
Well, I knew for about the first 6 months of my ministry that I was not immediately going to just jump in and hire an assistant minister. Because for one thing, I needed people to get used to me, to develop an awareness and a connection, or not, but at least to know that this is me, and cleave unto me or cleave somewhere else. But here's the cleaving, cleavage. Anyway, so one of my sisters in spirit, one of my best friends in the world is Esther Nicholson. And Esther had mentioned this guy, and then he reached out to me, and I went, okay, well, it's not time yet. And then he reached out to me again, and then the penny dropped, and I went, oh my God, this is the guy that Esther has been talking about. And so we had a Zoom call. He was still in Florida, and we immediately knew that we loved each other. And so he started, when he moved out to LA, that was summer. It was last summer. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It was last summer. And he got out here and he started attending the church even before we interviewed him, gave him a letter of call or any of that stuff. And right away, lots of people who were here already knew him, and they loved him, and we connected so beautifully. He has just been, he's my partner in collaboration, my partner in crime, my partner in spirit, and there is so much heart there, and I'm really so grateful every single day that I get to work with him, because we love working with each other, and we challenge each other to grow by just simply saying, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? How's this? How's that? And we laugh constantly. We come to the office early and we stay late. We're having the best time. It's really great. So he's an excellent teacher and an excellent minister, and our community has kind of exploded with him. And it's really good. For the longest time, the demographic of this community looked almost exactly like me. And, that's enough. That's enough. And so it is now not always just continually looking like me, which is great. I've seen me. And it would be good to have other people who don't look like me, who don't have the background I have, who have different cultural gifts and just spiritual gifts, all of it. And so there's just been a real commitment to openness. And, what can we do? We are in the laboratory of the infinite, as Ernest wrote. What shall we create? Yeah.
LZ is on a little bit of a lag. He'll jump in here.
I'm playing Mike tag, but yeah, I think one of the great things I think I heard there is the partnership in ministry, in terms of having someone to bounce things off, because we're in an era where we can no longer, and probably never should have been, doing anything in a vacuum. Because what's clear to me is clear to me and clear to me only. And so the ability to engage, which is what ministry is how do we create room for all, as you said, be open on the sides as well. And that requires different previews, different perspectives, and the whole 9 yards. So I think that's great.
Yeah, it has been really powerful. We learn a lot from each other. I learn a lot from him. I hope he's learning from me, beyond hair and makeup.
I think he's got the hair and makeup piece down.
He's pretty good at it. Yeah.
Good
His nails always look better than mine. So,
And he follows the LZ form of very little hair. So, but
It might be both a style and an economic choice, who knows, but it works for him. I don't know that I could do it, but
yes.
all right, we're gonna
And
have
you
some
know
fun here.
that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it, right? It
yeah.
is as they say, variety is the spice of life. So
Hmm.
you never know what gets somebody's fire. I mean, we're
Right,
talking
right.
a little having fun here, but in terms of ministry, the different personalities, different approaches, the different way of storytelling, the different
Mhm.
experiential backgrounds that people bring
Yes.
uh, is working because you have to, I believe, create this environment or where people can tap into an experience and say, I can feel it, as opposed to, hearing it. Uh, it's that feeling, that embodiment. If they can tell the story and the experience has been right, it gets people excited about this teaching.
Yeah, I agree. We've spent so much time in the left brain, and I don't know that I did when I was growing up in this teaching, but the heart is what is, that's where the healing is, that's where the growth is, that's where the growth edge is. It's all of that stuff. Just that one, having only one person. I had a conversation with Steve Rambo about this about a month ago, and he said, it's really good to be breaking away from that imperialistic form of leadership. We're seeing it happen corporate wise, but it's really past time to happen with communities, sacred communities, spiritual communities. And I really agree. I don't need to be in charge. I mean, my name is on the sign, so the buck stops here. But it also starts with all of us. The buck starts here, and so accountability, responsibility, and shared responsibility, shared creation. And it's really, really good because we all get to give each other insights based on like you were saying, Reverend Z, the variety that we bring to our daily life.
I appreciate that perspective because I for so long the language within New Thought has been my ministry, my people, and I was never part of it. But I guess the understanding I have is that way back when communities would argue over who was a member of whose community due to votes and politics and all that. And no, that's my person. And I so want us to get beyond
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
ownership, that even slight perspective of ownership. And I did it today in a conversation with a minister that I was like, oh, my ministry. And it's like, no, wait, it's not really mine.
Yeah.
It is a ministry in and of itself. I am serving it in this way at this time. And I want it to be here when I'm not. I want it to be here when I'm kind of done with this.
Right.
Not at the moment, folks, just when, right? And you say you bring that in, which is great because what I also know is all of our ministries, however we express them, are tied directly to our own learning and our own experience and our own life history.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to touch on this because you find yourself at a really unique place geographically, let's say, in what's happening with the politics of our nation right now, with what's happening in regard to immigrants and people's right to exist. And I've seen you be rather vocal in your human profile, in your personal expression of it. We always balance that. It's a fine line between, am I talking for me or am I talking for the church that I serve? And you seem to be doing that very well. I admire what I'm seeing in how you're navigating that. But I think we'd all love to hear a little more of your philosophy of just that. How do we navigate the experiences that are happening right now?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I've gotten less filtered in some of the stuff that I am posting on social media because it is, I think the time for filters and being liked is probably past, or at least it's been suspended, I think, for me anyway. And I keep reminding myself, and I keep remembering that every great movement of human liberation has started in churches, has started in spiritual platforms. And so what I try to do is preface it anytime I will say it, especially from the pulpit, because that can feel to people like a danger zone. I will go right for human rights. What is the right thing? How do we support each other? We human rights and integrity, spiritual integrity, does not mean we arm children or kill them or starve them. It also doesn't mean that we starve people who don't look like us or deny them access or say that it's okay for them to suffer. That those are not qualities of good humans. That there used to be a bumper sticker, who would Jesus bomb? It was sort of that thing. It's like, no. And so I look at that and I talk about it all. But the other thing I do too from the pulpit is, because we have so many people in this community who come from white privilege, who come and don't know it, and they get uncomfortable, which is, they think uncomfortable is bad. It's actually really, really good. But I will preface everything I say when I start talking about inclusivity or about anything that has to do with, loving each other and having a heart for each other. And I'll say, hey, I'm a white girl from Newport Beach. If I think that I don't have these tendencies in me, then I'm lying to myself. And my intention is to always tell truth, small t, big T. And I might follow it up with what I know is my son, who looks like me, looks like my husband, has never had to worry about wearing a hoodie. I don't have to worry about him walking down the street wearing a hoodie. If he's gotten followed at a grocery store or a drugstore, it's because he's probably moving suspiciously, but it's not because he's wearing a hoodie or has dark skin. And that's, that to me is such a litmus test that I can bring to other white people who are feeling like, well, this is making me uncomfortable. Well, good. Yeah, that's, Anne Lamott, I read this quote from her just the other day. You can have courage or you can have comfort, but you can't have both, at least not at the same time. And so dovetailing on that is the idea of ministry is about comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. And so how do we grow without really exploring our own limits, our own beliefs and those things? Not just about, gee, I've limited myself with this belief, but how have I limited other people with my judgment, with my prejudice, with my microaggressions, with my macroaggressions? How am I doing this? And so, yeah, I am very vocal on Facebook. I mean, I have been called to the carpet a couple of times on it, and I've said, I stand by my comments. They may be a little harsh, but so am I. And I think we can't be overly polite with this. I think we can't be polite most times, but we can be aware. We can be elegant. We don't have to be, okay, well, this is not elegant, but we don't have to be assholes. We can be kind, we can be loving, and we can also walk, intend to walk a mile in somebody else's heart, in their shoes, and without appropriating their culture, but at least appreciating it.
Yeah. A couple of things you said there, but I think one of the key things, and two of the key things. One is, if this is supposed to be a teaching of healing, you don't tell someone who has cancer they have a cold. You find the right way and the right time to say, you have cancer. Here are the options. Here's what we do. Let's go on this journey together. And if we start sugarcoating and making people feel comfortable when they're in need, now we're doing a misjustice and malpractice, even, if you will. And then I think, when I hear people say, "Oh, I don't see color," and I'm like, well, I don't like you immediately because I do have color. And if you don't see color, then you don't see me. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I got a problem with that. And 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 at the essence, Robert and I talk about this all the time. This is more of a way of life than a religion or a ministry. So
Yeah.
if we could begin to approach it from that methodology and teach from that methodology, it doesn't matter which center you go to or who you follow or what you read, even. What matters is, are you carrying out the principles in your everyday life so that they felt and experienced by
Right.
whoever you
Right.
encounter?
I can remember years ago hearing, several different teachers at the Asilomar conferences that we would have saying, if you were arrested for being a religious scientist, would they have enough evidence to convict you?
Mhm.
And I always liked that because, are we talking about it or are we practicing it? And it is definitely a practice. It is a way of living. It is a way of being. And the older I get, the less I can compartmentalize, the less I want to, the less energy I have to dedicate to that, because time, we're on this time space continuum, and we each have our agreement with spirit about how many years we're going to get, how many days, and I don't know what my agreement is, so I better get some stuff done.
Exactly. And I got to say, now you're speaking the Mile High language, because Reverend Z and I have been taught for quite a while that quote around enough evidence to convict you comes from Dr. Fred Vogt, who was here at Mile High for a very long time.
Yeah.
But as you say it makes me question, okay, was it his or was it just ours? In again, letting go of the ownership of where these principles come from, and stepping into, yes, I want to live that. I do want there to be enough evidence. I want there to be no question whatsoever that in the time of darkest, in the time of the great need, we stood with the truth.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I've told my congregation, they get a little nervous about it, but I've said, we are a sanctuary church. We will stand in that. We will do everything that we have to do. I literally wake up at 3 a.m. wondering if there's enough space between the floor of the sanctuary and the stage where we are to hide people if we need to. And how many people can we get in there? And I've also said, if they're going to have to go through me to arrest any of you or anyone. And so people get nervous. It's like, well, aren't you waving a flag to ICE? It's like, okay, well, they can arrest me first. I am fine with that. Listen, at my age, I haven't been arrested yet. That might be kind of something to add to the resume. I'm good with that. Martin Sheen does it all the time. Why can't I do it? I want to be arrested. Come on. But yeah, they get a little nervous, like I'm inviting them in. It's like, well, I want to make sure that the people who need the safety and sanctuary are hearing this. As far as anybody else, that's up to them, and that's between them and God. But I know that I have to protect and to love people.
I just went to Mexico and back for a conference, and don't tell anybody, but my passport is within that 3-month window. My passport expires in September, right? And they say don't go anywhere in that 3 to 6 months because and I thought, all right, well, it's Mexico. They probably really don't care.
No, they're going to let you in.
They're going to let me in.
Getting back may be the issue, but
and even going back, they're okay. We'll get rid of you now. Thanks for coming. Get out of here. But I also thought that if I get hassled coming back into the U.S., good, because as a white boy from Jersey, I'm going to use my privilege in that moment to make a big ass stink and and if you want to hassle me over this, let's go, because I'm willing to stand there too and say this isn't right and we can't let this happen to anybody. And maybe people listen to me, maybe they don't, maybe it becomes so. Luckily, they were kind of like, you got any guns, plants, or alcohol? Guns, tobacco, or alcohol, tobacco, or guns. That's all he said. He looks at me and goes, guns, tobacco, or alcohol? I'm like, nope. He goes, all right, welcome home. Have a good time.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. But it's important that those that either have the resources or have benefited from the privilege, that we take that stand and be willing to go to the mat if it comes down to it.
Absolutely. And I will. I mean, we have a gate that locks, and we lock it more often now. We close it more often. We make sure that the people who need to have the way to get in are able to get in. It's an automatic gate, and we have a combination lock, and those people who need to access it can. And so, I am happy to close that gate and not let people in. I also just put manuals all over the property that read ICE first response, emergency first response manual. So with everybody now has access on the property, and some people have taken them home to what do they need to know? What do they need to do? What do they need to say? What are their rights? How can they protect someone else? And I did that last week. So I put about 13 copies of this all over, bright blue cover. And, I sent it out to the region because I talked about it in our regional meeting. We're Region 2 with CSL. And I said, anybody need this, let me know. And they all wanted it. So, okay, so now everybody's got it and they can customize it. And because this is what we do. We love people. Jesus, Buddha, Allah, I gave a talk the other day, and I said, we're really used to hearing, what would Jesus do? What would Buddha do? And this was right after the floods in Texas. I said, here's my question. What would Mexico do? Because Mexico showed up, and more people from Mexico, and immediately than from our own government to help in the search, the rescue, and recovery effort. I said, so what would Mexico do? Go do that. Be that. Where are you going to find your models? That's the integrity that I think life is calling for right now.
Beautiful. Yes. All right. There's our question. What would Mexico do? We're going to give you all folks a chance to ponder that for a minute while we say hello to a couple of our sponsors and let our guests grab a sip of water. But we'll be back in just a moment. So stay with us. Stay tuned. It's New Thought Today here on the New Thought Media Network. We'll be right back.
Are you passionate about media, storytelling, and making a difference? Welcome to New Thought Media Network, where your voice matters. We amplify diverse voices and share impactful stories. Join us in our mission. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to creativity and community, looking for enthusiastic volunteers who want to be part of something bigger. Learn, grow, and collaborate in various aspects of media production. Incredible support and camaraderie await you here. Your contributions will help us create powerful content that resonates with audiences and drives social change.
Ready to make a difference? Visit our website www.ntmedia.org to learn more about volunteer opportunities and how you can get involved.
Find our volunteer inquiry under the Engage tab on our website, or visit www.ntmedia.org/volunteer. We look forward to connecting with you soon.
And we're back with more of New Thought Today here on the New Thought Media Network. Our special guest today, Reverend Dr. Sidney Lehman Steen from the North Hollywood Church of Religious Science. You can contact her and learn more about that ministry at the link that's going across the bottom of your screen. And right before the break, you had a great question, which I loved, because having just spent a week in the Mexican culture with predominantly Mexican people at this conference, one of the conversations we were having, and seems pretty evident, is where Americans like to come from the brain and the intellect, that culture really comes from the heart and leads with the heart.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's heartbreaking to see our parts of the American culture vilify those people in that culture in the way that that is happening, and how much better life would be if we all just kind of led from the heart.
It's one of my friends and I were having a discussion about this very same thing. And all of us talk about it quite a bit, because we have people in our church who are living according to an undocumented status. And the interesting thing was, he said, we are learning to language that as, instead of saying undocumented, they're unprotected. And I felt my heart just go like this, because what you hear, and this is, oh my God, we marginalize, and this might be considered a microaggression. To me, it's not micro, it's very macro, where you will hear a newscaster or a politician, gosh, who, say the undocumented. Undocumented is not a fucking noun. It is a legal status. It's a description. Unprotected is actually the real truth about this. So are we going to step up and protect the people, especially, oh my God, people of heart? Well, any people, but yeah, so it's unprotected is the status that I am, that's how I'm correcting my language around this right now. And it's making a difference in how I am thinking about this and how I'm holding all of this.
I have to remember that unprotected sex is not a good idea. I don't think that unprotected people is a great idea either.
Well, and there's another thing there. Do you want to document that sex? Could be. We're a very litigious society, and if you're dating, you may want to, undocumented sex. Oh my.
Oh my God, that was good. I think one of the things that always opened my eyes is coming from the heart. I'll switch the gears here. I was at a conference last weekend, and about 4,500 members of my fraternity, and the heart space of just walking up to people indiscriminately and speaking and sitting down with someone over coffee and getting the conversation, and it's I sat down. I mean, I had two incidents. Sat down talking with one guy, asked him where he was from. He told me. I said, "Well, how did you get there?" Yada yada yada. Long story short, he's my cousin. Now, had I not come from the heart and engaged, it would have been crazy. Then on the way home, I'm sitting talking to another young man. We're at the airport, chatting it up. Uh, Turns out he knows my son-in-law. They grew up in the same town. He's a little younger. They went to the same high school. But had I sat there in my own little bubble and not reach out with a heart to greet people, to talk, to have conversations, none of that would have stepped on the scene. And it just shows, they used to have this 6 degrees of separation. Really, it's like 2 degrees of separation. But we have to engage it. We have to be involved. And that's what this team sets us up for.
It takes a great level of curiosity, I think, and that's if we can maintain curiosity, then we are able to dismantle our defensiveness and our protections. One of the teachers I followed for a long time, unfortunately, she's no longer in ministry, was Lola Wright. And Lola has forever and ever, and she's in Chicago, and so I follow her, and I am just always listening to the archives of her talks, but also because he spoke there a lot, and I absolutely adore and idolize Galen McDowell, because Galen is another one in Chicago, and they work together a lot. But it's about curiosity. If we can look at this stuff, be curious about other people, but be curious about our own our own stuff, our own thinking, and our own limitations, and our own discomfort, and to go below that, to begin to excavate with curiosity, saying, "Wow, where did that come from? Is it true? Do I want to carry it with me anymore? How can I dismantle it? What's the polarity of that? To really ask those questions, and it makes for such a juicy conversation, even just among, within yourself, and then you get to bring that curiosity out in the world, and again, without the defensiveness. You can still be vulnerable, and you don't have to be defensive.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that as well. And we had Reverend Galen on this program not long ago, maybe 4, 6, 8 weeks ago or so. And folks, check out the archives on the YouTube page. You can find that interview. And it was, I've had a chance to work with him a little bit into my NTA stuff. And, but we have to, and what I hear so important is to be able to be in the moment, really in the moment, not with defenses up, not with an agenda, not with all these, this is what's got to happen. And I recently or today released a Substack article because coming home from Mexico was what many would consider a show. We were waiting to push back when the pilot came on, and you can hear the emergency klaxons in the background, and he's telling us all we're gonna have to deplane, and I don't speak Spanish, so I didn't know what he was saying, but I could get the vibe of the room, as it were, and we always are at that choice of taking what's going on and turning it into heaven on earth, or turning it into hell on earth.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's often easier, it seems, to fall into the, oh, isn't it all horrible part. It takes a little more effort to say, hey, okay, our people are being attacked, our people are being picked up off the streets and disappearing, and our people are being oppressed, and yet is not the New Thought movement's calling, I believe, to step into that fray and show people there's another way, there's another avenue by which we can step forward in life. And that's kind of what we always like to make sure at some point, our program, we give our guests a chance to cast that vision of what you see as sort of that future vision of New Thought movement, and how we take the minutia of today and use that to lift us as a movement, to keep us moving forward. It's one of my new things I really wanted. How do we make this movement move?
Yeah.
And you don't strike me as someone that's ready to just plant roots and sit around and watch the world go by.
No. So let me build on something you said just a bit ago, which is, how do we live and deal with and be, this is how I'm interpreting that question. The stuff that's going on in the world. And so the minutia of everyday life, and the BS of people being picked up and being arrested and then being sent somewhere else, and all of that craziness. I have 3 questions that I teach and that I live by, and that I teach my congregation, our community. I have to get rid of that congregation word. I keep wanting to. I have to replace it with community. So there's part of my learning curve. But also our practitioners. And so the 3 questions to start with any time there's something like that, whether it's big stuff in your own life, big stuff in the world, is, what is there for me to know? What does Spirit want me to know here? What is the information? And to, get curious. What information is here for me from Spirit? What is mine to know? What is mine to know? Then the next question is, who am I to be in that? Who am I to be? Then the next question, and it's actually a combination question. Most of us want to go directly into the what's mine to do. We see shit happening and we go, well, what's mine to do? And I want my response to always be informed and guided, heart-centered, spirit-led. And so I will, once I ask those first two questions, what is mine to know? Who am I to be? Then I will ask, what is mine to do? Or this one sort of crept in over the last few months, what is mine to give? And I think the give question is maybe more salient for me right now than what is mine to do. Although I'm pretty darn active. I mean, I spent years with our first round of the Orange Man in 2016. I became very, very strong at being an activist. Now, as a sacred or spiritual activist, it's a different focus, or a different distribution of energy, because I have to have the energy to be a minister and to be here for this community. My vision for my community is just that, heart-centered, spirit-led, that continually is willing to grow, to embrace, and to be here for people, to support them through their life's journeys, to support all people and all forms of life. And where I want to see this movement going is that we have to have a much bigger umbrella. We talked earlier about how it used to be the restrictions on, well, if you go to this community, then you can't be involved in that community. I don't know I grew up mostly in RSI, so I don't know about United, but there used to be a 30-mile limit.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't have another community 30 miles within 30 miles.
Yep.
And that was very interesting. And it went on actually till kind of recently. But since everybody now has to be able to access learning online, and there's some classes that you want to take that the church down the street from you or the center down the street from you is not offering. And so that blows that one out. That, again, the time-space continuum no longer has value with that. But I know that this umbrella has to be bigger. And that means that we have to fully embrace, recognize, bring in, allow, strengthen, and approve of, whether it's divine science, religious science, unity, whether it's INTA, Anton, Affiliated New Thought Network, CSL, all of it, we all have to come together, because there isn't enough in the individual units to keep this teaching alive and fruitful. But if we are all together, and I have practitioners here, and this will probably piss somebody off. Again, I'll make somebody I'll afflict somebody in their comfort. I have practitioners here that are agape practitioners. They're not CSL practitioners. We are a CSL affiliated center. I have practitioners here who are Anton practitioners, and they're darn good at practitioners. I vet everybody that I invite to come into the space as a professional practitioner or as a minister. I'm very aware that they have the consciousness. So that's where the vetting comes in. But this, we have to stop being so exclusive and judgmental, because we still haven't healed that fundamental rift that happened in, what was it, 1957,
right,
between Dr. Holmes and the other Dr. Holmes. Apparently, we haven't healed that. And then when United and RSI came together, in whatever, I think it was 2011, it still has not been healed. We call ourselves one, but we're not.
Yep.
So we just have to get over it and just start doing the teaching and acknowledging and allowing and affirming each other. We have to lift each other, just lift each other. I spent 13 years as music director and later as associate minister at a Unity church in Portland. And they changed their bylaws so that I could come in as a religious science minister and be the associate minister. They'd never done that before, but I'd been there a long time. So what I got from that was an incredibly rich capacity and appreciation for teaching, whether it's a Sunday or a class or a Wednesday or whatever it was, and invoking the wisdom of Ernest Holmes, Charles Fillmore, Myrtle Fillmore, all of these other teachers, and bringing all of that in, and Eastern teachers. And it was such a rich experience for me to be able to weave all of it together. And it has left me thinking, why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we?
Yeah, exactly. I was actually having much of this same conversation with someone earlier today, that we've never fully healed that cultural rift, and we have so many organizations. There's a couple more we can add to the list you shared earlier: UFBL, Hillside, Agape, AGNT.
I can't believe I forgot them. Thank you.
Organizations come and go, and organizations ebb and flow, but the message, the people are so incredibly important that I really don't. I'm not too worried on how dressed up somebody is.
Not either.
But you also said something very important, but the consciousness is everything. So regardless of where you got your education or who you studied with, if you're demonstrating the consciousness in this moment, then come on in. Let's change the world together.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm glad that you mentioned UFBL, because Bishop Barbara King was just such a powerhouse. And I remember meeting her at the Parliament of World Religions in Salt Lake City, and I can't remember what year that was, 2012, 2014, anyway. And I remember there was a luncheon you could attend at this, and I love the whole goal of the Parliament, which is, there were over 10,000 people from every walk of life, every faith tradition, all across the globe, gathering with the intention of not killing each other. It's a really, really good plan. And so there was this extra luncheon that you could pay for and attend, and the Dalai Lama was supposed to speak. And he was not able to make it. So we're all seated, probably several hundred people in this room, waiting for him to come on. And it was announced that he was ill and could not be there. So we had a video, but I just was looking around the room, and it was fascinating to see. And here's my judgment suit. So many people going, oh, he's sick. He's old. He could be done. All of that. And I happened to see Barbara King, and she was in prayer. She was just right there in prayer, affirming the wholeness and the right action. And I thought, oh my God, that's where we're all supposed to be. Every time something goes on, we go immediately to prayer. And she was the only one. I'm sure there were others, but she was the one I saw. It's hard to miss her. She was like 6'4", and she was a presence just in her own right. And I thought, man, that's the consciousness that I want. That's what we need, is you go right to prayer and know its wholeness, and it's all right. It's all good. It's all good. God always has a bigger idea.
Well, part of this teaching, as I understand it, in this bigger umbrella of new thought, is what was said earlier. I believe this new thought of how you look at everyone as yourself. And so when something happens in my mind, the question becomes, what would I want to do to support myself as my other, if you will, that there's no real other, but to get that sense of how do I react in this way that allows me to see everybody as myself.
Yeah, it's extending a heart. Yeah.
Yes.
I like that.
The ego has to go away. Has to go away.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because early on, hearing teachers talk about this, that people reflect parts of us back to ourselves. And mostly what I took from those discussions was if someone is being a jerk, shorthand, um, then looking at that within myself of what do I need to heal, and then the conversation often would stop there. Okay, well, clearly I've got some jerk in me, so I need to heal that. And but what you're saying is so good, because it goes beyond that to the heart of how do I love that part of me and that part of them and make a deeper connection of oneness, so that compassion is the first thing, and that the compassion, just as we know, love heals everything. So the compassion allows for those walls and those restrictions to just dissolve. So it's engaging in a heart of compassion and not saying, well, God, what a jerk. How do I heal that in me? Which really isn't a very high truth kind of statement. But to be able to say, oh my gosh, I'm here. This person is standing before me, and it's me. I need to own, love, forgive, bless, ho'opono my ass off, and whatever it is I need to heal and lift within me so I can shift. Thank you very much for the mirror, God. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I like that a lot. Thank you.
I'm struck by something that's been running through my head recently, and I haven't been bringing it forward publicly an awful lot, but I think today is the day that I often talk about a more mature understanding of this philosophy, and we grow into that. And we come in the door to New Thought, and specifically to CSL or religious science, and we hear that phrase, change your thinking, change your life. And I've heard people push back against that phrase, and I've had people walk by booths in the street and go, why would I want to do that? And keep going. And I've come to a point where I look at it from when we come in the door, we have to change what we are thinking. But as we mature, we change how we are thinking. And so now when I look at those things and the conditions of my life, it's not the what do I want to think differently, so I get something different, but how am I going to think about this experience? And am I going to come from a place of inherent goodness, or a place of inherent broken lackness, if that's a word? I don't think it is. And so not what we're thinking, but now how we're thinking. And what I hear and what you're sharing, Reverend Sydney, is take that to all aspects of our life, everywhere we're showing up.
Well, and Rev Z, you were saying too about the feeling part of this and the heart part of it. So to build on what you just said, Rev Robert, that how do I want to feel about this?
Yeah.
How do I want to feel? I've been working with a friend with this principles. It's one of our practitioners who has been in this place of not quite knowing what the right next job choice is. And so we keep coming back to, how do you want to feel about it? How do you want to feel? How do you want to be able to rest at night or get excited in the morning? What are the things that bring you excitement and passion? The thought of a collaborative relationship, the thought of being able to help children, the thought of touching hearts, and what are the things that get you excited? What are the things that you can give, you can do? How do you want to feel about the job that you move into that has not yet been revealed? And so we begin to explore, to feel happy, to feel at peace, to feel collaborative, to not that collaborative is a feeling, but to feel the joy of experience, the reward from partnering with people to making a difference. And darned if she didn't demonstrate the right and perfect with 3 other offers within about 12 hours of getting very, very, very clear on how she wanted to feel.
Yeah. I love it. Demonstration. All right. Folks, we do need to take another quick break and say hello to some of our organizational sponsors and individual donors. However, we're going to be right back in just a moment with more with Dr. Sidney and our final thoughts. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this. Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center, Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring. As thank you to all of our organizational sponsors and individual donors. If you'd like to become part of the financial support for this ministry, help us share this message out across the planet, head on over to our website, ntmedia.org, click on the donate button and make it a monthly donation. We'll make sure that you get a big thank you as well. All right, we are just about out of time here, and as we always do, our final thoughts. So let's kick this over to Rev Z to get us started. Z, some final thoughts here today.
Yeah, I as I was listening during the break and contemplating, we talked earlier before we came on air about SOAR conference that's taking place in Banff in a couple of days now. And the theme of that is serious. It is captured in the hero's journey. And what we've talked about here today is that every moment in your life is a hero's journey, where you have to go through this transformational process. And I would like to just leave for everybody to sit with that, to take every moment as the hero's journey. And how are we going to respond, and what barrier are we going to try to get over, and how will we be reformed when we get back to that place where we started. And I think if we could just do that a little bit, we'd have a different perspective on life, and the feeling tone of everything and the action tone based on that feeling would be immense.
Beautiful. Thank you. Reverend Sidney.
So I'm sitting here in my office at the center, and I have my computer, my big desktop, and it has lots and lots of Post-its on it with different quotes. And one of them was given to me by one of our practitioners about a month ago. And I think to me, from what you were just seeing, Reverend Z, it builds on it. It's from Lena Horne. It's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it. And that's the hero's journey. It's the blessing. Yeah, we get to carry that load. That's the blessing. This is your gift. It's not your curse, it's your gift. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I'll write that down.
It's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it. Isn't that great?
Yeah, exactly. And I want to circle back around to something you shared at the very beginning, but before that, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I believe you will be at the Anton, the Affiliated New Thought Network conference later this fall in the beginning of October. Sure. I will be there as well, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you there. I have to tell everybody, Reverend Sidney and I had the great honor to share in a ceremony last year, and I was totally winging it, and I just kept looking over at her like, you got another one in you? And you were playing piano, and you kept looking back at me, and it was kind of like, Well, yeah, I do, but aren't we supposed to wrap this up sometime? I was like, no, let's do another one. Let's keep going. And you were
It's
right
fun.
there. You were
Yeah.
right there in the spirit of it all, and it was all just incredibly perfect. So I'm gonna always hold that memory of glancing over at you and you looking back like, yeah, I can keep going. Let's
It was
keep going.
very fun. It was such a blast. And as I was preparing to go into that, I thought I better just have a little list of songs next to me because it may morph. We
It
may
may-
morph. And
we
we did.
morphed. We
Yeah.
morphed. That's for sure. And for my final thought, something you said very early in our program today. Every great movement has started in the churches. It's about human rights and it's about spiritual integrity.
Mhm.
And I think that there's no better place for me, and I believe for so many people, to practice this piece of human rights and spiritual integrity than within the New Thought movement. I invite you to join us. I believe that's about all we've got time for here today, folks. So thank you again so much for being with us on behalf of myself, everyone here, and all of New Thought Media Network. We look forward to seeing you again real soon. But until then, we wish you peace and richest blessings.
Thank
Bye
you
now.
so much. Thank you. It was great. Thank you.